So I am, does it show the little dot that I'm recording?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm recording in After Effects. Let me just do the mask again just to show it. So I'll delete it. It's a quick process and it's pretty easy, really. So we have this logo that I brought in. It's a JPEG. You can bring in Photoshop with layers or After Effects with layers like we did with the little rings on Space Mouse's face to do special effects. But if you double click, you drag it into the timeline, and if you double click on it, it goes to a mask layer. This confuses people at times. I think it should say mask layer. It says layer, but it doesn't say mask layer. With the ruler turned on, I dragged these guides down, and I went to view, and I turned my snapping off, snap to guides. So it was snapping to the guides, and I wanted it to be just a hair bigger. So I take this and I draw a mask. Now, normally when you draw a mask, and I'm going to double click on it here and scoot it down a little bit. That selects the whole thing, but you can move these points individually. I do an exercise where I have red and I make the drips flow down because I move these over time. And it looks like the beginning of a James Bond movie where the blood flows down after through the gun. And it's kind of fun. And sometimes I call it paint because I don't want to offend people with the blood, but the blood is fun. Anyway, so this has a mask. Now, normally it shows this where you can only see if it's in the mask. And if I go back to my composition here or here, you can see it's nothing. It shows nothing. So I can go to my mask, which it adds it to the layer, and open it up, and I can say mask path and give it a keyframe so I can move this. And if I move it, then I'm holding the shift key so I move it straight. You can see you could have it expose this, but I want it to expose one letter at a time. And so I'll grab it with my arrow tool, which is V. And notice if you get to the corner, it tries to rotate it. So I'm going to go here and just click off to the side. Actually, I'm going to go back to my mask in here. And then I want to deselect it and then go back to my composition. And so I want to select just these points. It just gets a little stubborn sometimes. Just those 2 points. They're highlighted. And I can press on them. And if I hold the shift key, I can move them straight. Now, I don't want to move them straight right now. I want to move them straight at about 5 seconds. And you can type in here 5, 0, 0 to get exactly 5 seconds if that's what the client wants. Then I can move these with the shift key. See how they're moving straight? You could move them 45 or straight up, and I'm just moving it over here off to the side. And so that's going to animate the mask at this time. Now, normally I would go to the end and do a duplicate of this keyframe by doing the diamond, but I forgot to, so I'm going to copy this and put it at the end, Control V. And so this will go here, and then it comes back. So it exposes Goodyear and does that. I want to put this on a blimp. It reminds me of Blade Runner, though it didn't say Goodyear on the blimps. It had pictures of women and stuff on advertising things. Have you seen Blade Runner?
I haven't.
I recommend it. A good movie. It's an interesting movie. And so very dirty and futuristic. Anyway, so here we go. We've got this moving. Now, I want this background to be blue. Blue. Like that commercial. Now, I want this also to stay for a little while so it doesn't move all the time. So I'm moving this one over and I'm copying it. You click on it and go Command C or Control C on a Macintosh. Control V when I move the handle over. So now it's going to move. And it's going to stay a little while and then go back. Now, this is giving me a really hard edge. If you look in the mask, they have a feather, and I can feather this. Now, it's a very big image, so I'm going to have to feather it a bunch of pixels, but I want that little glowing edge there. So it makes it soft around the O, but actually on the top, it glows like it's neon a little bit. So I like that. And so here we go. And so this would go here and come back. Now, to render this, you first you should save it. I've already saved a version, so I'm not going to worry about that. And you can go add to rendering queue here. Now, there is a media compressor that Adobe has, but I'm not using that because it doesn't give me the right settings. So here under best settings, I went to a smaller size, like third size, 900 and 400. So it depends if you're going to have a really big blimp and zoom in on it, but that's big enough for a medium-sized blimp. And then here under, I'm going to go to 12 frames per second. That's what we use for web, or you can use 15, but if you're doing it for a movie, it would be 30 or 29.97. Spielberg's actually going to 60 frames per second, so you can do slow motion and it looks really smooth. So I'm going to say okay. And then here under lossless, I can't do a movie because Maya doesn't take movies. I don't know why. I think they should. I'm going to do, last time I did a Photoshop sequence because I wanted the background to be transparent. But here I want to do a JPEG sequence. And millions of colors, that's fine. It doesn't need to be millions, anything else. And so that's okay. And here you can tell it where to go. And I went to a Goodyear folder, which was inside Space Mouse's images. And I rendered it. But before I rendered it, I actually did this. I'm going to click back on my timeline. I don't want this background to be black. So you can add a new solid. And that solid, you can pick the blue from the image. If you had the image open with this eyedropper, I'm going to say cancel and just scoot back so I can see it. So new solid. And it makes it the same size as your presentation. And you can take the eyedropper and you can pick yellow, or you could pick the white if you want a yellow background, but I wanted the blue background, and say okay. And that solid's on top, so I just have to move it underneath. And so now when I render it, it's going to have that blue background. Now that background could be any color you wanted to with that solid. So we render that. I'm going to close this. Don't save. Let me do screen share and go to Maya. I was working on the tentacles I have. I made 8 of them, and this is the centerpiece. And so with this, we're not going to work on this one today, but I'll have the space alien a little better. And I made it move with a deformer. So it goes like that. And if I play it, I've got to color the eyes and stuff, but here's I think this is the best part. The teeth they kind of go in and out, but they're not really moving, but I love the teeth underneath.
Yeah, it looks alien.
Kind of like the thing from Star Wars that's down in the pit that Boba Fett falls into. And you've seen Star Wars or no?
I'm actually in the middle of watching it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the second one, they have this pit, and I just spoiled it. No, but I won't talk about it. Anyway, they have these things in the sand, and it's like a cone, and they're at the bottom. So if you fall in the sand, you slide down, and it's not good. Especially because they say you rot in there for 1,000 years, so you don't die. So it's not very good. But they have things like that in real life, that it's an insect that eats ants. It makes this little cone in the sand by digging the sand. The ant falls in and falls right into its mouth. So it's kind of like that. But any rate, we're just going to go to a new scene. Don't save this one. And I want to make a blimp. Now, tell me what you would use in the polygon. These are primitives to start the shape of a blimp. Blimp.
What is Blimp?
A blimp is, Goodyear has those blimps that float over the stadiums and they have engines and they float.
Got it.
Like
Yeah,
a big.
I would use a sphere.
Okay, yeah, let's use a sphere. Now, when I use a sphere, I like going here to my channel box, which they also call that properties. And I like going to the sphere, and I like rotating this sphere on the X. And I like rotating at 90 degrees because if you look at this, this looks more like the front of a blimp. Now, a blimp, they had different blimps. They had A limps because they were limp. The pressure of the hydrogen kept them up like a balloon. And so there's A limps and B limps. This would be a B limp. But they also had rigids, which there was an A rigid, B rigid, C rigid, and the D rigibles. D rigids are the ones that caught on. And you know the Led Zeppelin or the Hindenburg that burned up?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a Zeppelin or a rigid one, a dirigible, because they were rigid. And they had a structure inside. And so you saw these ribs of metal cage that had flat sides. So if I go to the sphere, and we could make a dirigible instead of a blimp, if we went here and selected these and went to 8 sides, and then it looks more like that old Zeppelin look. Now, this isn't long enough. How would I make it longer along the Z-axis?
I would say extrude, but I guess not.
This is a shape, and you can either scale it, or you could rotate it, or you could move it. And if you actually hit R for resize, you could grab this and just make it longer.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Or you could actually go here to scale on the Y. And if you wanted it 3 times as long, you could go 3, and it'd be 3 times as long. Or if you wanted it 4 times as long, you could type 4. Now, this is not giving me enough segments along the Y axis because I think they have more. So subdivisions on the Y, I think it's this one. I get confused sometimes. I'll go 12 and see. That's not what I want. I want that one to be 8. And this one I can go maybe 20. So you can adjust that. Now, if you manipulate this a lot, you can't go in and adjust it because it messes it up, because before you moved it, it was different. And so that's the shape of this would be a dirigible or a Zeppelin and not a blimp, but the more rounded ones are blimp because they're being held up. Now, dirigibles have big bags inside that are pretty round. They'll have 3 or 4 that hold the helium nowadays, or back then hydrogen. What's wrong with hydrogen?
It burns.
It burns. And the Germans did not have access to hydrogen because America had helium. And so they had to make hydrogen, which made it fairly dangerous. So they took all sorts of precautions, but I think it got hit by lightning is what they're talking about. So notice that these ridges you can see, but the ones on the side you can't see. If I go like this and I select all the edges, I'm using my right mouse to do this. I can go up here under Mesh Display, and I can say Harden Edges. And so if I deselect this by going to Object Mode and click off to the side, you can see that, yeah, it's not showing those hardened. Yeah, it is now underneath. So with the lighting in the correct way, you can see the ribs. And so this would be made of metal structure with some fabric on the outside, most likely linen. And the other thing they did, which was really bad, is they used like a lacquer, they called it nitrate dope. Nitrate is a bad word when it comes to fire because film's made out of nitrate film and it's very burnable. And also they put aluminum in it, powder, and that aluminum powder was very flammable also, but it was the way to protect this fabric from aging with the sun. So not a good combination. So we have this, and we want to have a cargo compartment down below. So what would you make? They call it a gondola. It looks like a little boat underneath, maybe. You know, the gondolas they do, and they actually go like this in Venice, the side to side instead of rowing. What would you make it from?
Well, not fabric, right? Can we make it of wood or
Um,
aluminum?
what would? Oh, yeah, but what would you make the shape? There's a little thing that hangs down where the people sit in. So
Well, metal, I think.
a what?
Metal?
You'd make it metal?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what shape would you make it?
Oh,
Sphere?
just shape. Well, I would say sphere,
You
but
could do sphere, and that would work. You could do a square and then taper the front so it would look more like a pointy end. You could, so there's no really wrong answer. I find that they look about the same as this Zeppelin. Um, how do I duplicate the Zeppelin? I'm asking you a lot of hard questions, and it's okay. There's no wrong answers. There's just, well, there are wrong answers, but I'm not being critical. So
yeah, well, copy UNPC, Control C, Control V, right?
you could do that, or in Maya, you can do Control D to duplicate. Notice how it makes these little
Okay.
double lines. You don't want to leave it there because it messes with the textures. Then I can move it down. And then to scale this to make it smaller, you can use the scale tool, which is this one, or it's R. So let me just show you. Q deselects the tools. W is the move tool. It's not M. E is the rotation tool, and R is the resize tool. The resize tool is the only one that makes sense, but they're all right next to each other, so it's easy to jump from move to rotate to resize to get rid of the tool. Sometimes the tool's in the
What
way.
is W again?
W is the move tool.
Okay.
So unless we can think of a word that means move, maybe it could worm its way. I don't know. So they don't make sense except for the R, which is resize, but they're all next to each other. So it's Q, W, E, R. So now if I hit R, I can resize this, make it shorter, less tall. If you go straight to the middle, it makes it resize down. And we can move this. Now, on the graph Zeppelin, they had one in the front and they had a couple little ones in the back where the engines were. But I'll just put this more towards the front. And it was connected with poles and things. But I think this one, I want to flatten the top on it. So if I go to the right view, which is spacebar, right view, and I hit F to fit, and I select it and I hit F again, I could come in here and grab some vertices across the top. Now that just gets those, and I could actually move them down. But if I wanted to grab, and that looks like a little place where people could sit, they'll actually have windows. But if I wanted to grab them all and move them down, I could use this lasso tool here, second one, and lasso the vertices across the top here. And notice I did an okay job. I didn't do a great job. I like having my heads up display here says I have 9 vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But if I wanted to get more, I could use the shift key and select a couple more. And then I could move them down just to make the top a little more flat, maybe to there. And then I could deselect, shift these two and move this down. Then I could deselect these two, move these down. And, you know, that's probably good enough. So they would have poles or some way of connecting this. But for today's lesson, I'm just going to take it object mode and move it up. So it's just touching the bottom like that. A little bit different design. Now, these had fins at the tail, like a rudder, like a boat would have or an airplane would have.
Yeah.
What shape do you think I should use for that?
Well, it's tricky, but I would say
It is a little tricky. I sometimes use spheres and flatten them like they're surfboards for those tails.
for each of, well, you probably make one and then duplicate them.
Yeah, and you duplicate them. Or you could do a cube. And so if I do the cube and I move it here and I go R and I make it taller, and then I look at it from a different view perspective, or I can make it smaller here. And maybe if this is a really old Zeppelin, they would just have square ones like that for the tail. But most of the time, they were tapered a little bit or rounded a little bit. So if I go here and I add some segments to this cube on the height, probably only need 2, enter. Oops, I did it wrong. That was the height, but I want segments. So they're here, 2. Now you don't see it. If I hit 5, oops, 4, if I hit 4, you can see there's a segment in the middle here. And so I could come up here to vertices, grab these, shift, and grab these. I marqueed around them, and W, move them back to make them look like that. Hitting 5 again. So that shape works. Do you like it?
Yeah.
It's kind of shark-like. And then I could take this one and select it. Now I want to just see if I smooth this, what it looks like. I don't think it's going to look as nice as I would like. So there's lots of different options, and you can be a designer and design your own Zeppelin. I think they were probably more rounded to be a little more streamlined, but I'm going to go up here to mesh and smooth. And I think they probably look more like that. Do you like that one better or no?
Well, actually, I do. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right, because we could go back to the old one. That's fine. This has a little more segments, and for a game, they try to keep lower segments. But I like this one. So we could duplicate it, Command D, and rotate it 90 degrees. Or we could go Edit, Duplicate Special. And in this tool, it remembers what I did last time. So I go to Edit, Reset. And so I want one copy, because I already have one. And I want it to rotate on this axis, the Z axis. So on rotate, it's X, Y, Z. Now they don't say X, Y, Z, but it's always X, Y, Z. I think they should say it. I think it would make it easier. But I want to rotate it how many degrees to make it lay flat across the back here?
90.
90 degrees. Good. You're doing a great job. So again, Don't be critical if you get these wrong. You haven't done this that much. You're learning. So there's 90 degrees, and you can see that gives me a nice little tail plane. This is called a rudder or a vertical stabilizer, and this is a horizontal stabilizer called an elevator. The elevator makes it go up and down, and the rudder makes it go right and left. Now, these are there. We have our little gondola, so we really have this blimp already. I would probably call it a Zeppelin. Do you think this is too big? I think it's too big. Do you like it bigger? You can have it bigger, smaller. What do you think?
I think it's right.
You think it's right? We'll leave it. Good. Now, what haven't I done in a long, long time?
You haven't saved.
Save the scene. I'm saving it into Space Mouse. I'm going to call it Zep. And continue. And if I was doing Space Mouse, I'd put, little gadgets on it and stuff. But that's all right.
Does it have an autosave if you forget?
I don't think Maya auto saves. I do not know what to do that. So you need to save. I think this is the right length, but I'm just going to make it a little narrower. Like that. Now, when I do this exercise with other students, I sometimes make a submarine.
It's funny.
When I do this exercise with other students, I sometimes make, let me see if I can rotate it the right way. I make a rocket. And there you are, rocket, submarine, Zeppelin.
Yeah.
So they're all pretty much the same. Now, with the rocket, I probably would make it smoother, but that's fine. So we've got these, and we saved. So we want to put this Goodyear panel on here. Now, I could do it by selecting some different vertices here, which I'll do. But before I do that, I want to pick a color for this Zeppelin. I will go to Hypershade. And if this was kind of a fabric-y thing, would you pick Berlin? Would you pick Fong-y? Lambert, where it's kind of dull?
I think Lambert, as fabric doesn't usually shine.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be real shiny. So sometimes I click on it, I get two, but I'll go to this one and I'll call this Silver. Very bad thing, but that's what they used for airplanes back then. They didn't, I guess it just really was what they used. So we can pick a color for this. And what color do you want your submarine blimp to be? It can be any color. Don't have the Goodyear logo, so.
Well, unless the same color as the Goodyear, but otherwise it would be white, I think.
It could be white. They're sometimes white. So let's make it white, and we'll just pick a nice white, and we'll take that, and we'll drag it to the blimp. And the gondola and the tail, I think they should be a nice blue or yellow. What do you think?
Yeah.
So we'll take this other Lambert, and we'll call it tail. And I'll just go in. Should have taken the tail.
Yeah, it's not typing.
Not typing. So sometimes it does that. I don't know why. I'll click on Lambert again, and then this one should let me type. And so with the tail here, double click, and I can pick a color. And if you knew, oops, I don't want to go there. I want to just pick a color here. Now, if you knew the numbers for the color, because they have HS, they have RGB values, you could type them in, or you could come over here and guess and say, I think it's about this blue right in here, maybe a little lighter, Something like that. It looks a little on the purple side. I'll go there. Well, you just get close. But if you had the numbers, you could type them in. And so I will take this and I can drag it to the tail, drag it to the elevator. And the elevator's being a little stubborn. Boom. And then we'll drag it to the gondola. Or you can say with the right mouse, assign material to selected. So there we are. Now the gondola would have little windows in it. And we could use a transparency map, but the windows I want to be kind of shiny. So what would you use for a window that maybe has a little shine to it?
Fong.
Fong, or the fongy. I like the fong better. Good choice. So we'll call this windows. And maybe we'll make them tinted so we won't see that there's nothing inside here. So we'll pick a color that's maybe a grayish tinted color. And we can make them a little transparent. And you could make them glow just a little bit. That takes away the shininess sometimes. And we could go in here with this one. And I think, where do you want the windows to be?
They're usually at the tiny tip.
On the tip. So we could actually make the whole front of this if we go to the right view. And we can make the whole front of it a little dome of glass where the passengers could go up there and look in there and see. So if I select faces and I go here and I marquee and get just these faces here, then I can't drag this to it because it'll make the whole thing this glass, but I can assign material to it. So it has this little glass dome. And at this angle, you don't see the shininess as much. And I can go for maybe some of the passengers here so they can look down. If I marquee here in face mode, you can see that it says 2 right here. Let me say done with this window. It says 2. So it's getting the one on the other side when I marquee it. 2, 2, 2, and one more. I like odd numbers when you do this. So there's 5 on a side. And we can assign this to it. And so if I go to my perspective view, and we rotate around, you can see that we've got windows for people to look out. Now they're a little tinted, and I hit the render button here to render it. Why doesn't it render well? Are there any lights in this scene?
Oh, we need to add them.
This is the blimp at night. So since I put a little luminance on these, that's why they're glowing. So here I can go to rendering and we can add this first one, which is a directional light. It's like the sun. Now it should be right inside the blimp, unfortunately. So I hit R, make it a little bigger so I can see it. I can even do W and move it. Oh, this is an ambient light. I didn't mean to do an ambient light, but ambient lights are okay. They're just the light that's bouncing off the earth or bouncing off the clouds. We want it to be fairly low. 0.3 is the max I do. I think in movies they do way too much ambient light because they want to show off all the detail. So this has a little ambient, but not giving us a lot. I'll move it down. I think it doesn't matter where the ambient light is. And then we'll add a directional light. And this would be the sun. So what time of day do you want it to be?
Let's do morning.
Morning. So if we rotate this here, morning, and they're flying into the sun or flying not directly into the sun. And so that's, if it's morning, mornings are sometimes a yellowish glow. So we just do a slight yellow tint and say done. And so if we look at this with 7, you can see the light on the blimp. See how it's yellow on top?
Hmm.
It's actually a Zeppelin, so I'll call it a Zeppelin. And I can render it. It's not giving me a lot of light. This is a problem because it's doing, in my render setting, it's probably going to Arnold. Arnold needs a lot more light. I'm not as happy with Arnold. I like the Maya software. And we can go in and do a higher quality, highest quality production. We can even change the size if we go to common. But when we're rendering and testing it, this size is fine, or you could go to a smaller size. Right up here, some of the smaller, 320. Pretty small, but it renders quickly, so you can see the different colors. And do you like that one? We'll zoom in on it a little bit and we'll render again. See how quick it renders. So, do you like the colors?
Yeah, I think the bottom though, or the cabin should be yellow.
Yellow. So, here's what I'm going to do. Let's make a yellow color. And should it be a shiny yellow or should it be a dull yellow? Notice how I said that? Dull? You want a dull? Okay, go ahead. Oh, we go Lambert. Lambert. And that Lambert, we can come in here. And you can always change these because where it says Lambert, you can, most of these you can change them. Here, see where it says Lambert? You can change that to something else. So we'll go this cabin. And that Lambert's not giving me permission to do anything, so I'm going to try a different one. Cabin. Our gondola. And so with that one, I'll hit enter. And we'll go here to cabin, double clicking. Opens it here in my attributes editor. Pick a nice bright yellow. Now they have colors up here. Is this yellow good?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we'll do that. Now, if I drag this to it, it would kill my windows. So what you have to do is go over the top of this and you can say, or you could go here to the, and say, select objects with material. So see how it's selecting the tail and the body, but not the windows?
Yeah.
And so then I can go to my, cabin, and I'll assign it, even though it's gray. And then I'll go here. It's going to assign it to the tail too, but that's all right. We can change the tail pretty easily. And here with my cabin, I want the yellow. Now, I double-clicked on it, and I said yellow, but I didn't say done. So you have to click this done, which is on the bottom. So that makes, oops. That's swearing. Anyway, done. And then I can take and drag the blue back to the tail. And there we are. Now, if we wanted to, yeah, we're okay. Good. So I'm going to the side view right here, right mouse and space bar, right view, just because I want to be straight on. And I want to make the panel for the Goodyear blimp. So I'm going to faces, and I'm going to grab the faces here to there for that panel, okay? And that grabbed both sides. If you counted these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I don't see that anything's moving on your screen.
Moving?
Yeah, it's like stuck, your screen. Are you moving anything?
Oh, it froze, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try something. I'm going to save. And do you, let me see if I can, perspective. Does it move now?
Oh,
No, let me share the screen again and maybe that will help. Close this, go here. Your screen sharing has paused. Resume share. Obviously I clicked on pause.
okay, now it's good.
No, okay. I didn't know I could do that. Right view. And so I'm selecting these panels right here for the Goodyear to go on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be 16 times 2 would be 32. And so I can select those. Now, I've already selected them, and if it was a hard selection, you can actually go create quick selection sets under sets and call it side, zep, side. And so I need to make the texture and apply it. When I do that, it's probably going to deselect this, but I can select it again by going to that quick selection set. So the side, I think I'm going to make it a blend just so it has, now I think I'm going to make it a Lambert again. And we'll call this sign. And under color, I'll pick the file. And we did this yesterday. We go to file and it's in here and it's in source images. No, it's in my image folder. Let me grab this and get it out. It always gets in the way. So I got to go up and it's Space Mouse Images. And I had a folder called Goodyear. And inside that folder, I had all these images, which when I say open, I have to scroll down and say use image sequence. I was hoping there was a place to make it loop here. So let me just see if there is a place to make it loop. Because I'd like it to play over and over again. Either that, I'm going to have to make a big movie, but I think there's a place to make it loop, and I'm going to have to look and see. So that file, if I look at my thing and I look at sign, it didn't take it. Sometimes it does that. So I just have to double click on it again. Oh, maybe I'm at the end too, but go back to color again. And why it didn't take it, I don't know. It just gets stubborn once in a while. And so we need to get the file. Let me scoot this up and try that one more time. Sign. Go here. Get the file. Open. It's opened. Tell it to be a sequence. Good. And there it shows the color there. The first panel's all blue. So we can get these panels here. I'm going to scoot this up so you can see it. And under select, I can go to quick select, zep side. And I can go here to this one. And with the right mouse, I can say, whoops. I can say assign material to selected. Now it's probably going to be backwards on the other side, but let's see what it looks like. Clicking here. Now, notice you can't see the color because if you're in 6 or 5, it doesn't show it in color, but 6 shows it in color. Now, it's not assigned correctly. What do we have to do?
Oh, change the
UVs. And how should I apply this? Planar, because it's flat. But what direction? Should I apply it this way? Should I apply it this way onto the side of the blimp? Or should I apply it this way?
Well, I would say X,
And,
but
and you're correct with X. And I can apply it and see it applies it correctly. Now I know that the other side is going to be backwards just because I've done this before. So we need to apply the other side separately, but this is good. And you can see it says Goodyear and goes away. Then it goes to gray because the animation is only so long. But so if I take the other side and I grab these, I'm holding the shift key and I'm in face mode to grab these. Then I want to apply them on the Z axis. And then if we play it, oops. So the Z did, oh, it did Z. Z is wrong, but I like the way it looks. Isn't that neat?
yeah.
So if we do Z, we'd have to rotate it. We want to do the X axis and apply. And we want to flip this 180. So here in my properties, you should be able to rotate this on the Y axis. 90 plus 180, is that 270?
Yeah.
270, so you're good at math. We should be able to rotate this 270. And so we've got it there. So this side is good and the other side is good. So we don't have any engines on this. I'd normally make propellers or jet engines or something. This gondola, which I'm going to object mode and clicking on, needs to always be with the blimp. So you can do mesh combine. If you were going to make the rudders move to make the blimp turn, you could parent them, or you could make it flap like this to make it go forward like a gondola. If it's in the future,
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to do that. So Control Z. And this one here, your elevator, if it goes like this, the wind hits it and you go up. If it goes like this, the wind hits it and it goes push and pushes the tail up, which makes you go down. So elevator. So we could take those, and this is the blimp. So I'll just call it over here. It's just remembers it's a sphere. You can go zap. And before I parent these to it, I want to edit, delete by type, history. Take this one, delete by type, history. And this last one, delete by type, history. Just solve some problems. And then I like to see where there has these numbers. If I freeze transformations, they're all zeros and ones, so I can get it back to this position if I have to. Freeze transformations, and then I'll go here, freeze transformations. So everything's 0, 0 before we start animating it. So this one's called ZEP, and this is called rudder. I'll just call it R-U-D-D-E-R. And that rudder, if I use my middle mouse, I can drag it to the ZEP. And then this one, I clicked off to the side because this tool's in the way, can hit Q. This one's called elevator. And then I can take the elevator, drag it to the ZEP. And so now this is the parent. Wherever the parent goes, the Zeppelin moves, the rudders move. I'm Control Zing that. But the elevator can still rotate up and down. In fact, I can hit D and move the pivot just a little further forward. Click on this one, move the pivot just a little further forward so that when it rotates, It's rotating from the front of it. Now, you might want to move those back because it's kind of moving through it weird, but that's okay. I think it's all right. It looks kind of neat. So we have this Zeppelin that we can make it move. I will set a keyframe here. To set a keyframe is S. And then over here, I'll move the blimp, W. I will move the blimp off to the side, and I'll hit E and rotate it. Make it go up a little bit. I'll hit W, have it start going up, S. And if I play this as it's moving, it's going to spell out Goodyear. It's going backwards now. I hit the backwards one. And so we made a blimp, actually a Zeppelin because this has a rigid structure. Used to be called dirigibles because they were rigid. A-rigible, B, C, dirigible. And the B limp's caught on, so it's a blimp. So, and there we are having it animated. And we could set up a camera. Let me throw a camera in right here under rendering. Camera comes in right in the middle. We can look through selected, move the camera back. Up, it's leaving my tailplane behind. So why is it doing that? Did I not get the parenting correct? I didn't. Middle mouse, drag it down to the Zeppelin. So now the tail will move with it. And we can look through the camera. I like calling the camera render cam. Underscore. Because when I render this in my render settings, it's going to ask me what camera that I'm going to use. And if you scoot down here, let me scoot this out of the way if I can. It's going to render the perspective camera and give you something completely different. But I can go to the render cam, and when I render this, it will render this view right here through my render cam of the Zeppelin flying away. Could make a fish like this pretty well too. Have the tail move back and forth. All right, I'm going to save this. I like the way it's saying Goodyear on it. I'm going to do one other thing. If you look at this Goodyear, it's pretty flat when I render it. Fairly flat. But if I don't know if it would really be bumped up, but I want it to be. So this sign, if I go in and I go to the bump mapping, and I can pick the same file for the bump. Fatal error. Okay, well, we saved already. We're done. I guess it doesn't like a series of images for the bump. I'll have to try that some other time. But I saved, and so we have that. Thank you very much, Yulia.
Thank you. Can you please send me the recording? I want to try everything you did today. I'll probably just take Carl's computer since I have it.
Okay. I'm just, I can send it to you, or I can just post it on spacemousecommand.com.
Oh, yeah, I have that website. Okay.
Okay, I'll post it there. I probably won't do it today. I got to go right now, but tomorrow I'll do it.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to start posting all those videos, and I'm probably going to put it in a section. I'm going to try to make it where you have to click on a word to go to that section, if I can make a hidden one, because I don't want people to have access to it unless from now on they start paying me for lessons. You guys don't, because you're my team. So that's fine. All right, very good.
All right, thank you.
You take care. Bye-bye.